Welcome back to the Lowe Down on the Floor, your behind the scenes pass to every duel and every moment of drama on Fox's The Floor. I'm Zach, aka Trees, and today we've got a double feature of trivia legends.
That's right. This one is special. First of all, we have David, King David, as the editors like to call him, the floor's 19-time Jeopardy winner. He's been called unbeatable, unflappable, and unfazed. But we're going to see what happens when you dig a little deeper.
And joining him, the return of Alex, who shook things up earlier in the season with the iconic Real Housewives duel against Ira. If you think that they're done making waves, think again.
And we're diving into how David maintained that dominance, the mindset it takes to stay calm in chaos, and what Alex has been up to since that famous Housewives duel. Plus, we're breaking down the latest episode and what it means now that the floor is over. Tears, tears, tears.
Well, let's get into it.
So, as always, let's break down this episode because I think this is one of the. I don't know about you, Zach. It was exciting. It really had its ups and downs. And so we had Ted Laurel being the first one that was up, gets randomized, goes against hotels and motels. And little did we know that Mr. Ted himself had all the moxie in the world. Wins hotels, motels. Then goes against Zach's nemesis and Megan and Trees. Because anyone who keeps your category until the final is your nemesis until otherwise stated. Because it's like Highlander.
You won't say her name on the show.
It can only be one. And Ted wins the Trees and he goes for the time boost. And it goes against Mr. Mark, Fortune 500, who might be the greatest bluffer that the history of the floor has ever seen. I'm going to have to do a separate video on that. Just for him to go back to the floor for Tony to challenge. And then once Tony beat Ted, it gets to our first person on our panel. Tony challenges David in weddings. And I gotta go back. David, what were you thinking going into this episode? Because you had an opportunity to pretty much stay and play, but you decided to go the other way. What was going on?
So if I had stayed and played, I would have gotten a time boost, I think, because I had won 2 duels from the episode right before. But at that point, the best option for me to get that time boost would have been to take Alex on in poetry. And that duel became, I think, one of the highlights of the whole season. And it also showed that that duel really could have gone either way. So I think I made the smart move in going back to the floor. Because I easily could have gone home if just one thing had gone a little bit differently in that poetry duel. So I knew that meant that I was a little bit of a riper target now that I had weddings and not my European geography. But I was comfortable with weddings. It was a good category for me. There were some categories out there on the floor that I really didn't want to get tagged with, like cosplay. But weddings was all right. So coming in, I was really hoping I could, keep weddings as long as I could.
And I do say you did a pretty good job. And I don't know. And I'll talk to Tony about this one day. But she just seemed kind of flustered in the very, very beginning when they showed and I don't know. Have you watched the episode yet, David?
I did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so when they showed the bride and her first thing was boutonniere and bouquet, I was like, oh no. No, it starts pretty formulaic, easy. Then, oh my God, why is this so hard all of a sudden? And so did you kind of feel like, I might have this in the bag when she was kind of stumbling over her words?
No, I didn't think I had it in the bag at that point, but I did get a slight sense that she might be overthinking it. Fun story with Tony. We realized that we lived in the same town in northern New Jersey, and she even went to my elementary school for a little while. So small world. But yeah, so there were 2 people from Ridgewood, New Jersey, at least at some point in that final episode.
Well, that is a small world. Speaking of small world, Jeopardy. The next duel we have is Alex, and I do say, and Alex has said that road trips is one of the hardest categories he has seen on the floor. Yep. But he said, hey, Devin, wait up. Wait till you see this poetry duel. And I must admit, it combines so many different elements. We're used to the fill in the blank title format. But not only do I have to fill in the blank, I have to fill in the line of poetry. What was going, and I guess I'll start with you, Alex. What was going through your mind when David challenged you, and what was going through your mind when you saw how the format was being played?
I knew David was going to challenge me at some point. My whole goal, once I got poetry in episode 6, I said to myself, there is one person on this board who presents a risk to me. No one else presents a risk to me, and that person was David. And I was like, oh, well, the odds are in my favor that we won't ever face each other, but we did. And so the format itself, though, that was exactly what I had prepared for and expected. I also did feel very comfortable with the category. Initially, when we saw the full list of categories, I was like, "Ooh, poetry." But then when I started thinking about it, I was like, "Oh, actually, no, I know a lot about this. I worked in a bookstore, and I just, poetry is, I think, one of those kind of good Jeopardy topics that I had been studying when I was on Jeopardy all those years ago. And so I was really prepared for the category. I was taking the Sporkle quizzes and all of that stuff as well. So it kind of played out how I wanted it to, but when it started getting closer and I thought David actually might challenge me, I was really hoping someone else would challenge me first, but no one wanted to. I kept going up to Tony, like, "Hey Tony, don't you want to challenge me?" And but she had a path to victory and I had a path to victory, and my path would have just been apparently reading John Milton just a little bit harder. Um, but so, it worked out the way it was supposed to, but I'd like to think we made some good TV.
Yeah, it was a great poetry slam.
Yeah.
See what you did there. I like it. I like it. So, David, you said it as much in episode 11 that you were going to go poetry. What was it about that particular topic that drew you to it? And was that also what you expected when it was presented to you?
Sure. So, as somebody who runs academic competitions for a living, it's probably no surprise that the more academically themed categories were more to my liking. And history and geography are my strongest suits. So, really, anything like that is perfect for me. And I got really lucky in being able to play eras, bodies of water, and my own category. But obviously, I was going to need to venture a little farther afield from that. And poetry is a category that I can see, like what Alex said, how it's a little intimidating, to the average player. Poetry, it's funny because on the one hand, you think of it as kind of esoteric, and yet I read a few years ago that the most popular search term on Google was song lyrics. And if you think about it, what are song lyrics but poetry?
Yeah.
So it's honestly a category that I think, should be more accessible. But those clues came in hard, and I think Alex and I did both a great job with it.
Yeah.
And honestly, the reason I liked it as a category goes back to something else that I said, which is that I studied a lot for it when I was in high school playing Quiz Bowl. And the key to success in Quiz Bowl, and that spills over, of course, into Jeopardy and the floor and really trivia of any sort, is that if you study hard enough, it gets into your long-term memory. And then it's just accessible a half second quicker. It's easier to recall. And poetry is a category that you can only go so deep on. And I actually thought the floor went quite deep with it. But in general, I mean, it's a category that I thought, okay, even if I really didn't spend any time prepping for it specifically on the floor, because I was focusing more on, weddings and stuff like that at that point. I thought, okay, I've got some knowledge in my back pocket and hopefully that'll be enough.
So, Alex, can I address something? Because this is something that the internet wants to know.
Yeah, sure.
We're talking to two Jeopardy winners, and me and Zach are what we call normies.
Hey, let's speak for yourself, Devin, because while he may have won Jeopardy 19 times, I have watched it 21 times. So
So we, as the normies, how did you two get involved with the floor? Because I'm on I battle against the internet warriors, and they're saying it's not fair, and I'm like, hey, First of all, I was in the 95th percentile of my entrance exams for college. Y'all might be in the 99th. I don't care, but I am not an idiot either. And I've
Yeah.
done quizzes, but I understand the allure of someone who's won as much as you on America's highest trivia show, which is Jeopardy. I guess we can call it that. So, how did you two even get involved in this little thing called the floor?
Well, so for me, and I really do for the purposes of this show, I think I was billed as a normie as well. Because the Jeopardy mention doesn't even make it until the final episode. Um, but I just applied. I was a fan of the show, um, from episode one, and actually I posted on Instagram this week. I had a post, a social media post, where I watched the first episode of the first season and said, "Oh wow, there's this new show called The Floor, and I'm pretty sure if I went on it, I would win." Um, and I came
Very
really
close.
close. So that's like some pretty good manifestation. But no, I was just a blind application. I do know some people were maybe asked to apply, and I'd be curious to hear David's story. There we go. But yeah, no, I was just a blind application. But now I think with my success on the floor, maybe other casting people will ask me to apply to things now. So I
Yeah, Alex, you're going to get more screen time in the near future, I'm sure.
think so.
Yeah, for me, and maybe this will at least turn down the skeptics a little bit. I wasn't myself initially recruited, but there was a friend of mine whose name is Bob Harris, who I had invited to my Jeopardy Invitational tournament taping just over a year ago. And Bob is a super champ on Jeopardy as well. And he's also written a number of really great books that I highly recommend everybody check out.
I think I
Particularly,
have. I'm pretty sure I have one behind me if I were to go find it.
yeah,
Actually,
the best is called Prisoner of Trebekistan, which is all about how in studying for Jeopardy, he really got new perspectives on life in general, just because it introduced him to so many new cool topics and fields of study and all that. Well, anyway, Bob and I have been friends for about 20 years, and he had been approached by the floor because the floor wanted a big name Jeopardy champion to be on either season 2 or season 3. And Bob was recovering from hip surgery and didn't really feel up for making the trip to Ireland. And I was going to be in Europe last summer anyway for one of our competitions. And I said, sure, as long as it doesn't interfere with the dates for that, I'll be game. And it did interfere with the dates for season 2. So that's how I ended up on season 3. But the simple fact is that the floor itself really wanted somebody who was a big Jeopardy name on the show. And if it hadn't been me, it would have been somebody, equally impressive with their Jeopardy resume. So in terms of, people saying, why is somebody from, the Jeopardy elite, on the floor, haven't they won enough? Well, if it hadn't been me, it would have been somebody else. So from that angle, I didn't think I was taking away anybody else's rightful slot.
Yeah. And someone that's just knowledgeable about trivia and loves trivia shows, things like that, it's probably natural that you'd be on multiple trivia game shows anyways. So
And I think all four of us, we have a affinity for trivia. Like we like it, we love it. I did trivia in high school and everything like that, and it's just fun. And
yeah.
if I could say I go head to head with a Jeopardy champ, so be it. And if I can knock him out of a category, cool, because everyone's not impenetrable.
Yeah,
Because some people
I
don't know
certainly
their
wasn't
animals.
invincible after all.
I'd like to think this could just be in my mind, but I've talked about it in the past day. I'd like to think, David, I landed some punches that
Oh yeah.
weakened you in the next battle that helped determine the course of the rest of the season. So I feel like Steve owes me some money, but yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's cool that and it's so funny in the world of Jeopardy. I'm a 2-day champion. I am not considered one of the greats of Jeopardy. We can talk more about it, but I was
Alex,
training both of my games until I won the final and they lost the final. But for me to be a humble old me and to like almost beat like
Oh, you played
you know,
great.
yeah, I think it's good for my ego.
And Alex, let me say something else for your ego. I read a while back, I can't swear to it that it's true, but I don't see why it's not. There are more people out there, or more Americans at least, who have won an Olympic gold medal than even one game on Jeopardy over the course of history.
I will take that as well. And also this show, and I don't know your viewpoint on this, David, because you have more of a history and identity connection with Jeopardy. But for me, Jeopardy was something I'd wanted to do my whole life. I almost got on the teen tournament and then I didn't, and then I got on adult Jeopardy. Jeopardy itself was very stressful and not fun in the moment. It's fun to be a Jeopardy winner. It was not fun to do Jeopardy. It was great to meet Alex Trebek. The floor was fun the entire time. This is the better experience I had, despite the lack of money. So that's the way I felt. I was like, because like we're kids at summer camp again,
Yeah.
you know. And
And
so
you got
I'm
a trip to
curious-
Ireland too.
and the
Yeah.
trip to Ireland, yeah. So I don't know, David, if you have positive associations with doing Jeopardy, if it's more in the kind of the after.
On both, I would say that both the floor and Jeopardy were fantastic experiences. Somewhat, different reasons, of course. For Jeopardy, the thing I would say is that in that very first episode that I ever taped, I did not play well, and I put out an answer that didn't even fit the category, and honestly came really close to none of this ever having happened because of a stupid mistake I made. And the thing is that I think those nerves were showing, but once I got that first Jeopardy win under my belt, I was able to really feel like I was playing with house money. The floor was a waiting game, and it was a cramathon. For Jeopardy, there were things that I studied that, just by luck did come up even, the next day on the show a few times. But on the whole, any one thing that you study coming up on Jeopardy is pretty remote. Whereas on the floor, of course, you got to do your homework, right? And, for me, really coming into the floor, my number one goal was just not to embarrass myself. And I knew they were going to play the Jeopardy stuff, and I was ready for that, and I welcomed it. But I did not want to be a one and done, and I didn't want to make some stupid mistake. And I think I acquitted myself, well in that sense. So honestly, I think it's more the reverse for me, that after that first show on Jeopardy, I was playing with house money and was pretty relaxed. Whereas on the floor, I was pretty stressed up until like Andrew beat me. And then it was like, okay, if that's how this story goes for me, all good. And I think the last night, when we were at the after party in Dublin, I think other than Steven, I was probably just about the happiest person there, because this could have gone sideways for me in so many ways. And I'm very happy with just how it turned out.
Yeah, because you couldn't have lived that down if let's say you got a random category that you're just not familiar with, and it's like, you lost. You're supposed to be a 19-time champion.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I finally got a chance to see those last few duels last night, and both Andrew and Steven would have beaten me in the final. I might have gotten international foods off of Andrew, but there was no way I was winning the other duels against either of them.
I have a slightly different take on that. I believe, and this is my belief, and you don't know what happened at the moment. I think I would have won if I had beaten David.
You very well may have, because your pop culture knowledge.
It's because of the pop culture thing.
Yeah,
like
way
that's
better than
really
mine.
like that's really where I'm like a savant at.
Video games, all that. Yeah, that's right up your alley. I could see you clearing cosplay.
David,
you gotta be careful about what you're good at, but then you gotta be even more careful what you say you're not good at.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
So I mean, the stuff that I'm not good at, I know I'm really not good at. So it might have been fun to watch me go down in flames completely on cosplay or boy bands, but I don't mind having spared America the experience.
Yeah, because I do say this. They edited you like you were the final boss. Like you were the super villain in the corner. And I know you played it up for the cameras. And I was like, he's a really nice guy though, guys. He's not that bad.
Oh, I will say this. When we were about to watch the episode last night, the trailer came on and it said David versus everybody. And I was just laughing my head off. I mean, if they played me up as a, final boss, fine. I mean, like, I think that was actually pretty funny.
But in the moment, it kind of was.
Yeah.
I don't know how much David knows about this. I mean, it's a small green room, but in between 11 and 12, the other 8 of us did a little study session on weddings, and David was not invited to said study session. So, there was a little bit of that energy, all in good fun. But I
It's an
think,
honor. I would say,
yeah.
like you become the shark that everyone wants to take down. One thing I will say about this episode, they showed more of the group strategy. They always showed some crosstalk and stuff like that. So you hear a little bit more this episode. Oh, well, I shouldn't challenge David because heaven forbid he gets my category. So it was kind of almost like this group strategy of how do we take down David. And there was a lot of that strategy going on the whole time. There were certain sharks, like I did the same thing with trying to convince Clarion, who had boy bands, to take out Chef. I'm like, heaven forbid Chef gets to keep his own category of category. There was moments going on all over the floor, and it finally started to show that group strategy. So I loved that.
The game is surprisingly complex, and I think this is the first season where I think you start to see some of the strategy emerging a little more. There's a lot more going on. On the one level, it's a simpler quote unquote game than Jeopardy, but on the other hand, it doesn't have these chess moves and these alliances. I mean, my God, I mean, how many alliances did you all have?
Yeah.
I had a couple. You had the one. I did ask David afterwards. There was a moment when I was like, okay, was there anything I could have done to change my history, my in the game? And I was like, David, if I had come to you and said, let's do a Jeopardy Final 2 alliance, would you have taken that bait? And then he was like, no, that wasn't the best interest for me. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad that he wasn't open to that, because then it didn't happen, and then like I didn't do anything wrong. So
Alex, I think you played a great game, and it's hard for me to find any fault with any of your moves throughout the full 12 episodes.
Well, another podcast might disagree with you a little bit, but this one does not. So that's great.
And I've been saying throughout this, and I know David, I think you probably are listening, because there's always a random European IP address that pops up on the feed that's listening to the podcast. I'm in
Virginia tonight. It's all good.
So I was like, that must be David listening to this episode and whatever. But I have been saying since the beginning that, hey, we worried about so-and-so and so-and-so, but David's over there in the corner. David's over there in the corner. David's over there in the corner. But I don't think you could write a better script for our season to have Brian do what he did, and to have this, like, him as the initial big boss, and then the craziness that happens around episode 8, 9, and 10, where a new section of the floor kind of gets big and gobbled up. And then once Brian is gone, David enters and is like, oh, you thought Brian was the main person to beat. Welcome to this new person. So it was so much uncertainty about what would happen, unlike some other seasons where you're like, okay, why won't they challenge periodic tables? Why won't they challenge periodic tables? Why won't they challenge periodic tables? Periodic tables is going to win. And I was watching an episode of Edge of My Seat, like, I don't know which way this is going to go. How did this? And I just want to kudos to both you guys for making it a very fun watch, because it is a complex game. It's a social game, and the randomness of it, the randomizer, the random decisions that people make when they're going the directions, and what do they do if the wrong person wins victory? Because I've told Zach, if I had won travel accessories, I was going for boy bands. And watching boy bands last night, I would have won boy bands. Shout out to Belle Biv DeVoe. I wanted to be them when I was a child. And so that would have completely changed that whole dynamic of that section. But you can't control any of that, because now you're stuck with weddings. You're going against endangered animals. And that was a pretty close battle, too. How did you feel losing to like Orex? I don't even know what that.
Oryx, yeah.
Yeah, it's the logo of Qatar Airways, which I've flown more than once, so I should have known that. But you know, that's the only one of the three I missed, and for that matter, the ones I missed in the poetry duel, I had never heard of either. So yeah, if Oryx had just come to me 1 or 2 seconds earlier, maybe I get lucky, and the next one that not Alex, Andrew didn't, would have gotten, he would have missed, but. I can't really look back and say I didn't play well. I got Cayman, I got Wolverine. I mean, there were some animals in there that, aren't the ones you learn in preschool. At least not my preschool. So, I don't know. Maybe if I'd been
Gotta be from Michigan.
Michigan preschool, it would have gone differently, or I don't know. But no, I was happy with how I played. I'm a big birder, actually, and I'm glad I didn't miss any of the birds that came up. So that I guess was some small consolation there.
All right, I gotta ask one last question because I know you have to leave, and then Alex will continue this conversation because I know you have a hard stop, David. This is for Terry. Were you yelling at him to intimidate him in your answers? I have to ask that question.
No. That I will say. I will tell you what I was doing. What I was doing was trying to just spit it out as fast as humanly possible. And in the moment, I was just playing my game, and I didn't really care if this were televised or not. I just wanted to get those syllables out of my mouth as fast as humanly possible. And when I was practicing, when we got back to the hotel each night, I was honestly sitting on fairy tales and fables for most of the season, because that would have been the category I would have most likely have gone after, and I would have done quite well with it. But I didn't quite know what it was all about. And, I was just trying to, in my practicing, just saying random fairy tale references into a mirror at like 12:30 in the morning, and in like my, pajamas. And if somebody had like walked into that hotel room and just seen me saying Cinderella, Hansel and Gretel, Big Bad Wolf, like that, I'd be in an Irish mental hospital right now, not doing a podcast.
I was wondering, so you were the one randomly like yelling Pinocchio or something like that in the wall next to me?
Sorry, I kept you up, Zach. All right, well, I got to go read the final match of the National Political Science Beat. That's next on my agenda for tonight. But gentlemen, it's been great doing the podcast. Great being on the floor with you, and maybe we'll see each other in All-Stars.
Absolutely.
Yeah, y'all two are definitely locks. I think the only way I'm going to make it is if I'm going against Shane, or if they put all three of us on together to put us right by each other.
All right, take care, everybody. Thanks for the pod.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
So, Alex, he said something that piqued my curiosity. How did you prepare? Did you also yell in the mirror at yourself?
No, I didn't. My preparation was very low tech too, because I saw the binders and the laptops and stuff, and the printouts, and the use of AI. Very interesting. I bought a physical notebook, and each page was one, and I ranked them in order of and this was when we knew the categories but not where they were on the floor, right, for like a week or whatever. And then I kind of ranked them in order of easiest to hardest, and then I focused on the hard ones, and then kind of worked my way backwards. I did do at least one quiz on all 100 topics. So I really did, and most of that, a lot of it was Sporkle. There's another site called Jetpunk, which is good in some, it's not quite pictory, but it's good for geography, fill in the blank kind of poetry things. So it was a lot of that. It was Googling. My mom and my husband gave me ideas for classic cars and rodeo, which I felt less good about. Classic cars, I will say, was the only category of the 100 where I would have been embarrassed on television. And the fact that it was next to me is why I made that an alliance with Clint that you guys don't know about, where I said, Clint, I will not go for you until the very end, because but he didn't know it's because I was so bad at classic cars.
He wasn't that good at classic cars either. But anyway,
he was fine. That category was tough. That was a tough one, yeah.
It's funny you say the AI thing, because one thing that people know me for this is the giant binder I came with, but what most people don't know is for I think the week or so leading up to getting all the categories, like we didn't know our categories yet, anything like that. At work, we actually built a GPT to simulate the game where you would plug in a category, it would generate photos and then put them like a quiz and then rank, and you could do that with up to 10 categories. It would tell you where to practice.
Wow.
The only problem was like I was testing with like tools or whatever. It showed pliers like 9 out of 10 times. I'm like pliers, pliers, pliers. Why is ChatGPT so obsessed with pliers? Did not work. Did not help me study, and I wasted my week when I could have been studying for real.
Man, I just find it curious because not Chad, Zach came with his binder. You said you had yours. I came with one legal notepad, and I literally would look at a category and I would write down everything like old school down on the thing. So when I saw Zach's binder, I was like, "Am I ill prepared? Am I at what's going on?" As I just
And that's
wrote
how
it
we
down.
became friends. He was like, "Look, let me take a look at that binder."
I'm really tactile. So for me, the act of handwriting was really important. If I had done a printout or if I had done something typed, it wouldn't have stuck in my brain as
You're
well. So
right.
I'm very much a handwriter, and so that served me well.
Yeah. So now that this is done, what was your favorite moment of the season? Now that we don't have to predict who the winner is
Right.
anymore and all that kind of stuff. What was your favorite moment of the season?
What I was able to do in the Housewives duel, I think, was just really special, and because so many of us went in there with targets in sight, and very few people actually got to execute their plans to such perfection. And the way the board is designed, they wanted to create these opportunities, but then so many things had to line up for that. And so for me to and when I saw Ira, because I knew who Ira was the whole time, he was the celebrity of the season for me. He's the one I recognized immediately. And I when I saw him, I was like, okay, I can't tell anyone I know about the Real Housewives. And having a science category, I could get away with it a little bit. And then when it just came together, and then when I won, which I didn't expect to do, I was like, you know what? I'm here to win or to go home to Ira Madison on the Housewives duel. Those were like my two like end states. And so to be able to do that and just like I don't know. It just like it still gives me chills sometimes. It's just like such a cool thing I did. And it's just like, when you're 39 or 79 or whatever, you don't get to do as many cool things like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that that's kind of I don't know, it's just it's really humbling, but it's also just like it's a cool thing I did. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it just made me happy. So
No, I definitely say the connections that we've had, and it just we are in our 30s. I'm not in my 30s anymore, but we're in our 30s and
I've got
just
three weeks left.
hey, we claim it. But it's so hard to make adult friends.
Mm-hmm.
And to say that I have people that I can contact months later. This has been a while since we actually taped these episodes,
Yeah.
and the fact that I talk to Alex almost every day, surprisingly, after the way we started our relationship, and I talk to Zach almost every day is interesting to test, and that's like my favorite part of it is that I know a whole lot of cool people that
Mm-hmm.
I normally would have never been in contact with that I know I could reach out to, and we're just being nerds together. Because I like
Yeah.
nerdy adult
Ooh.
friends and all that. Zach, you want to take us away, or do you want some closing thoughts? Because I know we've
Some
got
closing
some other stuff.
thoughts. It does speak a lot. I think like we're on a show for matter of weeks, right? And it's insane how fast everyone becomes friends. That last episode was really, really telling. Not only was it a great group of people that were on there, I think all knowledgeable. Ted surprised the heck out of me, right? I mean, he had an extended stay with his hotels. He cut down Megan, and then what was the last? What was the last role that he did
A
up there?
Fortune 500.
Fortune
Fortune
5.
Yeah, he branded himself a winner with that one. So I think he proved to be fantastic over there, and just everyone that was left that last episode absolutely deserved to be there. I wanted everyone to win. Unfortunately, that can't happen. I am very happy that Chef, who was standing next to me like near the entire time that I was there, won. We talked. I felt like part coaching because he definitely won with the same strategy I had. But it was a lot of fun. Like, you can't recreate this. Maybe you can next season, but I think it was definitely a special thing that we all got to experience.
Absolutely.
And that wraps up episode 12 of the Lowe Down. Huge thanks to David for giving us some rare insight into what it takes to win 19 times on national television, and to Alex for reminding us that sometimes the boldest moves come from the most unexpected categories.
Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube for more recaps, interviews, and unfiltered takes. And if you got question, thoughts, or your own predictions, hit up the lowdownonthefloor@gmail.com and drop a comment. We're reading them all.
Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and don't sleep on any category, no matter how sparkly it sounds.